on Facebook or 1mcabq.com. If any of you are entrepreneurs, it is a great place to talk about your company, share your story. It's just a great place to meet people. It's a great community, and we'd love for all of you to join us. So I'm going to give people more time to connect since we have so many people, and then I'll introduce Jeremy. We are hoping that this is an interactive workshop. We really wanted to be able to give you guys the opportunity to ask real world questions. I've actually been in information technology most of my adult career. And I still, even though I sold my first software company 10 years ago, I still get calls from friends and family and old customers about, you know, oh my God, my Facebook page just got hacked, my Instagram just got hacked, what do I do, what do I do? And while I can give, you know, pretty general advice, I think it's really good to understand how this sort of thing happens and how to avoid it. So that's really why we're here today. And if you have real world questions, we're going to do a question and answer session at the end. So I hope that you will participate. Hi, Trish. I'm so glad you're here. And Joe Kiltika, I haven't seen you in probably 23 years.
Yeah, no kidding. It's been many,
Are you
many
still
years.
at Sandia?
Yes, I am.
Jeremy and I were just talking, and I said, like, was it 23 years ago when we were together at Sandia? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, that would make sense. My son's 23, so.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Good times.
Yep. All right, so looks like the waiting room is calming down a little bit. Very nice to see everybody. All right. I guess I'll go ahead and kick it off, Jeremy, and introduce you. So I met Jeremy working at Sandia about 23 years ago. And when a friend of mine recently, a couple of months ago, reached out to me because her LinkedIn profile got hacked and she was having trouble getting it back online. I told my teammates that I wanted to find a way to do a workshop on this topic and bring someone in who could really put it in layman's terms. So there's lots of, you know, people in IT, and that they can always give you good ideas to follow, but most of the general population, people like me and many of you, I'm sure, it's over our heads, right? So we wanted to kind of bring it down a level and talk real world experiences. And Jeremy, it was funny because Jeremy popped me up on LinkedIn. We're like, hey, how you been? Where you been? What are you doing? And it occurred to me that he was the perfect person to teach this workshop. So he's got many certifications, CISSP, GCIH, GSEC. We don't know what any of those mean, but he's got years of experience and lots of certification, 26 years of experience in computer system support and analysis, working on computer security, penetration testing, forensics, PKI, incident handling, networking systems. And then he's had 23 years working in various roles with Sandia National Laboratories. He also has his own consulting company. I'll let him talk a little bit more about that. He does penetration testing. And I also own a software development company. So I think there are times with my own clients that I could bring him in to really do some penetration testing and make sure that the apps and the software that we're developing are safe. So let me do a quick introduction of my team. If you look around on their board, Claudia is with FatPipe. She's our social media marketing manager. She's managing FatPipe ABQ for me today. My name is Lisa Adkins. I'm the COO of the FatPipe New Mexico Co-working Network, and I'm actually in our new site today, FatPipe Taos. Not much to see yet. We don't have any furniture. We're here setting up the IT infrastructure. I've got Laura Jepson. Laura, raise your hand. She manages our FatPipe Rio Rancho site. And then Andrea Amastoy, She actually manages the Bioscience Center, which is our sister center. And so, Jeremy, we are so thankful to have you here today. We really appreciate your time. And I know that you give presentations quite a bit, so I'm excited to hear you speak today. I'm going to mute myself and let you take it over. We will take question and answers at the end, but if you want to post a question in chat, then we'll make sure that we call on you to ask it directly. Okay, go for it, Jeremy.
Let me share my screen out here and get this up so you can see it. Can you see the slide there, Lisa? Good. Okay. So as Lisa said, my name is Jeremy Baca. Been doing cybersecurity for a number of years. Really, with this presentation, I want to, kind of give some real-world examples that I've seen over the years. Talk about some of the ways that people get hacked and what we need to look for, what we need to see, how we can, kind of try to fix the problem, how we can avoid being a victim ourselves, and really how things have changed and how things are going to change over the years. Go to the next slide here. Just a little bit about me. We'll go through this real quick. As Lisa said, I've been doing forensics penetration testing, working for a number of different national organizations, Sandia Labs, Department of Energy, Homeland Security, EPA, number of different customers I've worked for. A lot of these examples and a lot of stuff we're going to talk about come from some of these customers. I'm not going to name any customers specifically with each example, but it'll give you a good real world feel for what we're talking about. So really, a lot of things have changed, and a lot of things have changed in this last year. The COVID-19 shift has really affected cybersecurity, and it's really affected the number of people that are being affected by these attacks. Before, everybody was in a nice corporation, you had firewall protections, you had all these protections from your company, and now everybody's working from home. This huge shift from working in an organization to working from home has led to cyber attacks and criminals really trying to take advantage of this. Cyber criminals know you're working from home, your machine's not nearly as protected as it was in the corporation, you're hanging out in your home network, your kids are on that home network, you maybe not have the most security in place, you might have default passwords, you might have just different things on your home network that is not protecting you the same as it was in your corporate network, and the bad guys know this. The shift has really been a huge windfall for the attackers. Attacks have been up about 31% across the board, and about 50% higher this past year in ransomware attacks overall. And these numbers are huge because in a given year, ransomware attacks is a huge number anyway. 50% increase in that is just gigantic. So this is a huge shift and a huge problem for a lot of companies and a lot of people working remotely. There's this big shift, to keep that in place. And as we keep that in place and people continue to work from home or continue to work from locations that aren't quite as secure, we're gonna have to really figure out ways to help everybody, secure those locations. One of those things that really helps is what we're doing now, education. Educating yourself about these attacks, about what to look for, about how to avoid them, and really, that's the first step. People always ask, how do I protect myself? And the number one thing is educate yourself. Be able to understand why these attacks are happening, how they're happening, and don't become a victim of them. A lot of people, and it's kind of been in the past, a lot of hackers have been, looking for low-hanging fruit, and they've done a lot of dumb things that make it really easy to detect. Hackers have gotten a lot better. Hackers are not nearly as dumb as they, people think they are, and they've gotten a lot better at their attacks. It used to be where you'd get an email that was from, the Prince of Nigeria, and he was asking you, you're gonna inherit a bunch of money if you send me a little bit of money. And not a lot of people are fooled by that. The way people are getting fooled now are very sophisticated and a lot more ingenious than they used to be in the past. So, this has really become a lot worse of a problem. Where are these attackers coming from? all over the world. A lot of attacks now are coming from the Ukraine, they're coming from Russia, they're coming from China, and they're very, very sophisticated attacks. In these places, in these countries, cybersecurity is, you know, it's big business for them to use these attacks against us. In, you know, China and Russia, there's huge warehouses full of attackers that do nothing but try to attack corporations, try to attack people. They have huge call centers. It's a business for them. Just like we have call centers to, you know, answer Amazon calls, they have call centers that are nothing but hacking camps. And they bring in the best and the brightest, and they have them sit there all day long for their 8-hour shift, 9-hour shift, attacking people. Then they go home to their families, and that's how they make their money. So it's a huge business. It's not just, you know, some guy in his basement trying to attack you. It's corporations that are cybersecurity attack companies that do this in other countries. So, you know, it's really a huge problem, and it's something we need to be really aware of. As I talked before, you know, we went from this security model where we had this huge corporate network where we had all these security things in place. We had firewalls, we had servers, we had protections, and now we're on our home network. So we went from these safe networks to, you know, our unsafe networks at home, or maybe at a coffee shop or wherever we seem to be working nowadays. That leads to a lot of different issues. If your home network has weak Wi-Fi passwords, if we have default passwords, you're doing homeschooling with your students at home, maybe they get a virus and it can be spread through the network to yours. We have bandwidth limitations with, you know, all these people online. You know, how do we protect ourselves? Some corporations now are using corporate VPNs. So you get on your home network and then you VPN your machine into their network. That offers some protection, but not a lot of protection. You're still vulnerable to different things going on in your home network. What do we do here? So really, you know, securing your home network as much as you can, calling in professionals to help you do that, calling in people that can help you make sure that your Wi-Fi passwords are secure enough, that they're not, you know, your address or home 123 or something simple, something that's more secure so that you can protect yourself, making sure that a lot of your appliances at home that are connecting your TVs, all these different appliances at home now connect to our networks, making sure all those are secure, making sure that no one can attack any of those and get into other parts of your network at home. So there's really this shift of, you know, protecting your home networks and making them a place that, you know, is really secure so that you can do your work from home and not have to worry about, you know, some of these attacks. Some of these attacks are still going to get through no matter how secure your networks are. And we're going to talk about how that happens and really, you know, what we do to protect that. We're going to start getting into some of the types of attacks, and we're going to go through each one of these types of attacks, and I'm going to give some real world examples, talk about how they happen and how to protect yourself. So remote user credential threats. This is really where someone's trying to get your username and password. And how are they trying to do this? You know, if you log on to a free or open Wi-Fi network, you go to Starbucks, you go to McDonald's, you go to some of these places where you have Wi-Fi networks, they're probably not very secure, and someone can be listening. There's ways for attackers to sit in those locations with their laptop and watch all the traffic going across that network. If you go to a site where something's not quite secure or it's not using encrypted passwords, they could, over the wire, over the air, be able to see your username and password as it gets transmitted from your computer to the server, as your machine talks over these unsecure wireless networks. So a lot of different things can happen in some of these locations that can make you very vulnerable. Some of these locations, if an attacker is sitting in there, they can actually take over that Wi-Fi location and they can redirect your browser. So where you think you're going to your bank, you're actually going to an attacker's location that looks just like your bank. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But these kind of attacks can really get things like your password, your username, and take advantage of that. They're called man-in-the-middle attacks. It's where the attacker's sitting in the middle of the communication and they're watching that traffic, or they're redirecting that traffic and stealing those credentials. There's keylogger software. If you get attacked, or you get a malicious link, or you get some piece of malicious software, it could be tracking every single thing you type on your keyboard and sending it back to the attacker. There's network monitoring attacks. We talked about that. So there's some mitigations for some of this. We have things like two-factor. A lot of companies and a lot of places now are going to two-factor. This is, using two forms of a credential to get in. Probably all of you have seen this with your banks and things like that, where you log in and then it says, we're going to text you a code for the second password. And then you get a code to text it to your phone. You got to enter that in, or you have to, enter some other code that comes in through an email, or, some other way to have a second form of credential. Why is this important? Because if someone steals your username and password and they try to log in, they're not going to have your phone to get that secondary password. So, these things try to protect us a little bit, and help us a little bit along the way. Other ways to protect yourself is never reuse passwords. Reuse of passwords is horrible. Have very, very unique passwords for every site. That's very hard to say because we have so many passwords nowadays. And that's why you need to have some way to store those. There's password apps for your phone, writing them down. I mean, as simple as getting a piece of paper, writing it down, and keeping it in your wallet or purse for all your passwords is a good way to do this. But reusing them is a huge vector. If some of those sites get attacked and you lose that password, now they have your password for all your accounts. And by reusing them, I don't mean, change your password and put a 123 at the end, and then the next time around you put a 789 at the end, or for this site you put, an XYZ at the end, and have the same base password. It's still really easy for a password attack to get that. If they get one of those passwords, they can pretty much guess the rest of them. So really using unique passwords for different sites. Not using easily guessable passwords. And this is really, there's things that attackers will go out and do. If they're targeting you, they'll go out, and when I do penetration tests, this is some of the things I do. I go out and I'll look at your LinkedIn account. I'll look at your Facebook account. I'll look at your kids' Facebook accounts, and I'll be able to get keywords from those. I'll be able to see from those Facebook accounts maybe what your dog's name is, what your kids' names are, possibly their dates of birth, lots of different pieces of information that you put out there on these social media sites that you don't think is really that bad, but can be part of your password. A lot of people use their kids' names or their pets' names as passwords or part of their passwords. If I can get a list of all these different pieces of information about you, I put them in a password guessing program, and it starts making combinations and starts guessing these passwords, and I can get into a lot of accounts that way. It's a way we get into a lot of different companies, is through, just a little bit of reconnaissance into that person and looking at, their social feeds, their LinkedIn feeds, knowing the companies they worked for, and using all those keywords and combinations to try to guess passwords. Using, those kind of things in public-facing web servers and stuff is, everybody kind of does that. So you really need to have, that's where we talk about those unique passwords. Don't use your dog's name. Don't use your kids' names. Don't use your birthday or your anniversary date or any of those kind of things in your passwords. Really try to keep that separate. And that's, something we do all the time in pen testing and things that really catch people up. Next really big one is phishing emails. And this is a really big topic, and it's a really big problem. And it's one of those things where, phishing has gotten to be a very, very big lucrative thing for the attackers. So it's happening all the time. And you probably get, average person gets probably 1 to 5 phishing emails a day. And sometimes you might not even recognize them. But they're very, very broad targets, and they'll put out tons of these attacks trying to get someone to click on them, trying to get someone to reply to them. They're go to a broad audience. Typically, a phishing email will want an urgent response. They'll be kind of, critical in nature. They'll try to, get on your site of something you have to do right away. Um, One of the things that used to be the case was weird phrasing and broken English in a lot of these phishing attacks because they were using translators. They would put a whole email together and they'd use Google Translate and translate that from their native language into English before they sent it out. That's really changed. A lot of the attackers have gotten much more sophisticated. They have native English speaking people that are writing these emails. They're being a lot more careful with their wording and broken English and phrasing so that it doesn't stand out as much. So a lot harder to detect them than they used to be. It used to be really pretty easy to detect some of these emails. It's getting a lot harder. The next category is the spear phishing. Spear phishing is a much more targeted attack. So if you think of phishing as, these broad emails going out, it'll go out to 100 people saying, your bank account has been compromised, please log in so you can change your password, and it sends you a weird link that's not your bank's link. And it goes out to hundreds of people. We talk about spear phishing, it's much more targeted to you as the individual. And they get that information again from things like, LinkedIn or your Facebook account. And they can really find out a little bit about you and have a very well-crafted attack against you. They can send out a very well-crafted email that really targets you as an individual and has specific information to you. And that's really a lot more of the attacks we're seeing nowadays against people in professional organizations and for people that have sensitive information. They're getting really, really targeted attacks. And they're very hard to detect. They can find out on your Facebook page where your kids go to school. They craft an email that looks like it's coming from your kid's school with an attachment that says, here's the registration for this year's school year, and you click on it because you think it's your kid's school. Very well written, very well targeted. When these things happen, this is when you get malware. This is the main attack vector for these phishing and these spear phishing attacks is to get malicious software onto your computer. This is why they do it. This is why they send out these links. This is why they send out attachments. And these attachments and links are specifically directed to install this malicious software on your computer. Why? So they can steal information. This malicious software gets on your computer and it tries to harvest and steal information. Keyloggers we talked about, it can install something like that that logs your keystrokes, sends it back to the attacker. It can go into your internet history, show all the websites you've been to. It can get information out of your internet browsing history and from things like cache and cookies on your computer that could be your saved passwords. It could be your saved bank account. It could be saved credit card numbers. And they're trying to harvest all that information from your computer so that they can use your credit cards to go buy things, use your accounts against you. They try to harvest your contacts, and then they use those contacts that they harvest to send out more phishing emails. If they can harvest all your 100 contacts of all the people you know, then they can send out a phishing email saying it's from you now to all the 100 people you know. The people that get that think it's from you, and they click on the link thinking it's trusted that it's from you, and it's because your account got compromised and they got all your contacts and they could do that. So a lot of different ways that they're getting that information, but it's coming from this malware, from these phishing attacks. This stuff can be on your computer for long periods of time. You might never know it. You could click on a link, and not think anything of it and move on with your day. The software gets installed. The attacker's on your computer. They're harvesting information, and you never know that happened. And it just sits on your computer for years while they get more information at any time they want it from you. They also can take over your computer and take it over as what's called a botnet. What happens here is they get a bunch of computers. They can get 300, 400, 500, 5,000 computers that they have a piece of software on, a malicious piece of software on, and they can take all 5,000 of those computers and direct them to do something. So a botnet attack basically the attacker will say, 5,000 computers that I have the software on, I want you to go now attack Amazon. And now your machine has become part of a huge attack against Amazon. And they're using your computer, your power, your resources, and your machine to attack big corporations without you knowing it. So, a lot of different things can happen from this malicious software. Here's some examples of some phishing emails. This top example, this is one that actually went to Lisa. She sent it over to me. Thought I'd put it in here. This one's kind of interesting. This one is, I caught you watching porn. And this is, trying to play on your, did I actually do this? What's going on here? And it says, we noticed we saw an email from you. We have video from your web camera. Send us money. Or we're going to send it out to all your friends and really embarrass you. So they're trying to embarrass you, trying to get you to send them money so they don't do this. Do they have your video? No. This is specifically trying to get money from you, and they don't actually have anything on you. This was one that went out to lots and lots of people. I've seen this on a number of different computers, and it was really a prevalent one for a while. There's also some variations of this where they say, we have, sensitive documents from your computer, send us $100, send us $1,000, or we're going to release them out to the world. And this, again, they can find out some of that stuff from, social media, things like that. They know you work at a certain company. They can say, we have these companies sensitive documents that we got off your computer, send us money. Last thing you ever want to do with any of these things is ever send them any money. We're dealing with bad guys here. You send them money, even if they did have information about you and you send them the money, doesn't mean they're not going to send the information out anyway. They're not good guys. So don't send them money, bottom line. This other one down at the bottom, this other example was a pretty interesting one that I saw. This was a death warning, and it said, someone asked me to kill you. Pay $5,000 and get spared. If you inform the police, death is promised. I saw this one, it made me kind of laugh. How many hitmen are, going out and getting jobs for less than $5,000? I think my life and all your lives are worth a lot more than that. So if someone's actually got a hit on me for less than $5,000, then that's pretty interesting that a hitman would take that, and that they would, take my $5,000 to stop it. But once again, just trying to, scare people, trying to get them to give you money, trying to get, something from you that they don't deserve. Good real world example of this, and this happened probably 3 or 4 years back. I was working with the CEO of a very large corporation that got attacked, and he was very, very well versed in cybersecurity. He thought he was very secure. He thought he knew everything that was right. He thought he was doing all the right things. He got attacked, and they stole money from his corporation because of the attack to the tune of about $2 million. And how did they do it? They sent him an email and with a link in it. And he was sitting on his computer one day, and his kid's school, the attackers have been watching this guy for a long time. They knew where his kid went to school. They knew what grade he was in. They knew all about his kid. His kid's school went on lockdown, and his kids went on lockdown, and it made the national news. The attackers saw this. They knew they were watching the guy. So what'd they do? They sent out an email. The guy saw it on the news that his kid's school went on lockdown. They sent out an email saying, from the principal of the school, looking like it's from the principal of the school, saying, this is how you get your kid from the school. Now that we're on lockdown, please follow these procedures, download this attachment, follow these procedures so you can come get your kid from school, and we can release them to you. Very, very sophisticated attack. They've been watching the guy for years, waiting for that opportune moment to send that email when something real world happened. So he, of course, thought it was real. He knew his kid's school was on lockdown. He didn't think anybody else knew that, or an attack would know that. So he clicked on the link, downloaded the attachment. They got into his machine. They used his credentials, and they actually were able to skim money out of the company's bank account, like I say, to the tune of about $2 million. By the time he called me, it was the next day. We went in, did a post-op to try to figure out how this happened. We found the email. He didn't even realize that the email he clicked on was how they got the money out. He just knew that they lost a lot of money and wanted to find out how it happened. And then we did all the triage to find out that this particular email was exactly how they got into his computer and got the money out of his bank account. And you know, we tried to get it back. We tried to trace it back. At that point, it was well long gone, and we weren't able to recover any of that money. His insurance company covered part of the losses, but it was a huge loss to this corporation, and really hurt them for a number of years. So these are the kind of things that really happen. A lot of these attacks now are showing, you know, really common companies you're getting them from. You're going to get these kind of attacks saying that they're Amazon, and you made a purchase of $350. Did you mean to do this? Click on this link to check your purchase history. We see them from FedEx, from UPS. A package is waiting for you. Click on this link to see the tracking of this package. You know, we see it coming from what look like your credit card companies, from your bank companies, saying, you know, looks like there's fraud in your credit card. Click this link and tell us if you really made these charges. And then that link takes you to a bank account or a website that looks like your credit card, and you put your username and password in. They have your username and password now because it wasn't the real credit card or bank link. So that's how these things are working. Here. Email spoofing. A lot of these attacks use in conjunction with email spoofing. Email spoofing is very easy to do. I can send an email from my computer that makes it look like it's coming from anywhere. I can send you an email, looks like it's coming from the President of the United States, return email of president at us.gov. You know, all these things are very easy to do for an attacker. An attacker can make an email look like it's coming from anywhere. They can make the return address look like anything they want it to look like. There's, you know, it's really hard to tell. It's really hard to detect. Sometimes they're not real sophisticated, and they'll maybe have, you know, a single letter change if they're, you know, trying to hide something, but they can make it look like it's coming from anywhere. And they're always trying to make it look like it's coming from, you know, trusted companies, trusted people, trusted or people in your organization, people that you know. And you know how easy this is just, you know, because of the way that our browsers work and the way our email things work, makes it kind of easy for them to do this. A real world example of the spoofing email was in a banking institution that I was working in. This banking institution is a large multi-state banking institution. They sent an email to someone in the financial department that handles large transactions. And they handle a large transaction for this bank, between bank branches, between different things. They actually spoofed the email address of the chief financial officer of this bank, and they sent it to this person saying that, you know, looking like it came from the chief financial officer, with his official, you know, signature at the bottom, his email address at the top, and it said, you know, we have an urgent request. We need to transfer, you know, I think in this case, it was almost $500,000. It was like $480,000 from this account to this overseas bank account. And we need to do this in the next half an hour, so that we can get, you know, I can't remember exactly what they were saying they needed to happen, but they made it really urgent. And they gave the bank account numbers that then money should come from and to. They'd been watching this bank for a while. They spoofed this down. They sent it to this person in charge of doing the transfers. Person saw the email, saw that it was from the CFO, saw that it was urgent, made the transfer. Didn't even think to check, didn't even think to verify it. They knew, and they'd gotten those in the past from that person, that they did do transfers. So they didn't even think to bother to ask if this was legitimate. They made the transfer, and it wasn't discovered till the next day. And there was a lot of repercussions from that. But the bank had to change their whole entire way of doing business. That, you know, emails like that would not come through, and everybody had to be, you know that that wouldn't happen. And official requests had to come through a completely different system, and then verified by a phone call. But those kind of emails, those kind of very targeted attacks with spoofing, can be very hard to detect and really get people to do what the attacker wants them to do. fake pop-ups, fake phone calls, fake things on your computer. This is something that has become very, very prevalent. This is something that I've seen in the last month. I've had about a dozen phone calls on this exact problem. Um, an attacker can attack a website and cause a website to cause fake pop-ups to pop up for everybody who visits that website. These fake pop-ups look very, very real. They look like they're coming from your computer. They look like they're coming from Microsoft in most cases, or they can even tell if you're coming from an Apple computer. They can make it pop up and look like it's coming from Apple. They pop up and they say, we found a security problem on your computer. Please call this number so that we can fix it. This is Microsoft. We need to, fix these things. And people will call these numbers and they'll talk to somebody in a call center that's waiting for their call, and they'll be very professional. They'll sound even better than a lot of the guys at Microsoft sound. They'll have, they won't have real harsh accents. They'll sound very legitimate, and they'll walk the person through installing malicious software on their computer because they think that they're getting help and support from Microsoft. This actually is one that hit home for me, and I had to fix about 2 weeks ago. After I was asked to do this presentation, this actually happened to my aunt, and she called me up after it happened. But she got one of these pop-ups. She thought it was Microsoft. She called the number. The guy on the other side of the line, he said, "Yeah, we're Microsoft. We see these problems with your computer. We're going to fix them for you for free. We're going to help you out. Just follow these steps." So he walked her through some steps. He walked through, getting into a web browser, going to this website, downloading this piece of software so that he could help her out. The piece of software installed a back door, and what it did is allowed him to get into her computer. What he was able to do with that was once she installed that piece of software, he got into her computer and started moving her mouse around and started taking control of her computer. Um, she hadn't questioned him a whole lot up to that point. When he started moving her mouse around and started doing stuff, then she said, "Oh, wait a minute, what are you doing?" And he said, "Well, just let me fix this. So I can do this." That's when she freaked out. She hung up the phone with him. She called me. I told her, that's not legitimate. Unplug your computer, turn it off, unplug it, take the internet off of it, just don't turn it back on again until I look at it. And sure enough, he had installed not only the backdoor that she had installed initially, he had already, in the couple of minutes he was on her computer, already installed the secondary backdoor so you could get into her computer later, so that he could start pulling data off and getting data off her computer whenever he wanted to. All in the guise of he was helping, he was with Microsoft, he was there to help. A lot of these come from either Microsoft or Apple, or sometimes AV pop-ups that says, we're McAfee, your license expired with McAfee, call us up and we'll, update your license. It could look like the help desk calling from your home company could pop up saying that. A lot of these different pop-ups are coming out, and they're very well targeted, and they're very well crafted. And a lot of people go for them. So never will Microsoft pop up something on your computer asking you to call them. Never will Apple. Your AV company shouldn't be doing that either. So anytime you see these, 99.9% of the time they're a scam. Don't fall for them. Don't call the number. Don't click on the link that in those pop-ups. They're malicious pop-ups. The other thing we're getting now is a lot of phone calls, and I'm sure all of you have gotten numerous phone calls to your cell phone, to your home phone, and the same kind of attacks are happening with phone calls. I've gotten at least 5 or 6 phone calls to my home phone saying they're Microsoft representatives and that my computer's doing something funky, and they need to fix it. Those are all scams. Microsoft's never going to call you. Microsoft doesn't have people watching your computer and going to call you to say that your computer is sending out, attacks, or your computer's been attacked. They're never going to do that. Other phone calls that are coming out, or people are getting phone calls from the Social Security Administration saying Social Security number's been hacked. Call us back so that we can, fix that, or there's a warrant out for your arrest. And if you don't call us back, We're going to have some cops over there to arrest you. When you call them back, what are they after? They're after money. And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, there's been a warrant for your arrest. And if you pay the fine now of $500, then we won't send anybody out to arrest you. If you ignore us, cops will be there in the next, 24 hours to arrest you. A lot of these people will ask for, the funds in form of gift cards. They'll have you go buy gift cards and they give them the gift card numbers. They'll ask you in forms of funds that, can be easily transferred quickly. They'll ask for, debit card information. They don't want to go through a credit card because a lot of credit card companies will catch this fraud. But if you give them your debit card, a lot of those debit card transactions will go right through. So they'll ask for those kind of things to pay them off so that they don't arrest you, or so that they, can get rid of that ding against your credit or whatever it is that they're trying to scam you with. A lot now, a lot of phone calls now are happening with COVID scams. They'll call and say that they're the health administration, that you're eligible for a COVID test. All you have to do is, give them your credit card number or your information so that, you can get in line, and we're not going to charge your credit card. We're just going to charge a penny to it. We just want to need to verify with your credit card that it's really you, so they can put you in for your COVID shot, and we'll get you scheduled, and then they take your money. So these calls are coming, these pop-ups are coming, and they're getting more and more and more. I don't know of anybody, hardly anybody I've ever talked to who hasn't gotten one of these phone calls. Most people, know they're scams, but they're getting better and they're changing their tactics every day. Every day I'm hearing of some new tactic that they have for trying to get, people to believe them on the phone. This brings us to malicious websites. How does a malicious website work? What is it? Attackers are very, very smart in knowing that if they can trick you with a link that looks just like your bank account, that you're really likely to log into it. How do they do this? Very, very easily. There's a lot of software that can clone a website. I can clone a very large website in about 15 minutes, and I can post it up on the internet and change maybe one letter of that name of that account and create a legitimate website out on the internet that looks just like Wells Fargo Bank, for instance. And instead of, Wells Fargo, I change one little letter in there, register that name, and I have that site up. Most people wouldn't catch that. If I send an email to everybody that said, your bank account's been compromised, log into Wells Fargo and verify these charges, and I put that link in there, and that one character is off, most people are going to see, oh, it looks like Wells Fargo. They click the link. It looks like Wells Fargo's website, and they put their credentials in. Really, really common attack, and really easy to do for an attacker. Really easy to clone a website. The other thing that you'll want to look for when you're going to these sites is not only that the name is spelled correctly. You probably don't want to click on a link at all. What you want to do is go to that website that is a legitimate website. But the thing you want to look at is it a secure website? Is it HTTPS or HTTP? You can see from the example here of what a secure website looks like. That little lock in the corner doesn't mean it's the legitimate one. So what can you do? You can click on that lock and you can see where the lock and where the security comes from. So it'll give you, a degree of confidence that you're on the right site. So you want to look for things like that. Is it a secure website? Does it have the lock on it? And is it really a legitimate website? Is it spelled correctly? And just really not trusting links and emails. But it goes one step further. If you're on, I said like this before, if you're on an unsecure network, you can go to the legitimate website, something you have bookmarked, but I can redirect your computer to a fake website. And typically those fake websites won't have the lock on them. So what I can do as an attacker is I sit in the middle, I redirect your computer to go to the fake website because you're on an untrusted network. You put your credentials in, and then as an attacker, I just replay those credentials to the real website. You log on to the real website. You never knew that I was in between there, capturing your credentials and passing them on to the real website. So really looking for that lock, making sure that if you're in an insecure network, that everything you do is over an encrypted channel with the lock, and that you're really paying attention to, not going to real sensitive sites on networks you don't trust, the Starbucks network, the network at McDonald's, those kind of things. Um, but these are things that are really, really easy for an attacker and are happening more and more. And it's really hard to detect this sometimes. So if you get a link in an email and you think it might be legitimate, don't follow the link. Follow your, maybe a bookmark that you already made to the bank account, or type it in yourself, wellsfargo.com, so that you know that you're going to a legitimate site and not a site that's cloned in an email. The last attack vector I want to talk about is ransomware, and this has become huge. This is, said at the beginning, ransomware attacks are up about 50%. What is a ransomware attack? How does it work? What it really is it's a way for an attacker to lock your computer and lock you out of your data. What they do is all the same tactics we talked about before. They try to get you to install malicious software by sending you an email, by phishing an email, by you calling them and doing attacks that they say, or following the steps they tell you to do on the phone. All these different attack vectors is how they get ransomware on your computer. What does it do? The ransomware takes over your computer and it locks your computer completely up. You boot up your computer, all you get on the screen is a big screen that says your computer's been locked, and it's going to have a phone number, or it's going to have an email, and it's going to say, pay us $5,000, pay us $1,000, or everything on your computer is going to be lost. Everything's going to be erased. We'll erase your hard drive. They're very sophisticated. What they actually do is they encrypt everything on your drive, and they're telling you to get all this back and unencrypted. We're going to sell you back the key to your computer. We've put a padlock on your computer. You want to open it again, give us this money, we'll give you the key. You can open up your computer and go back to your business. It's huge business. It's, $1 billion industry. People are paying these ransoms, and people are paying them thinking they're going to get their data back. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Once again, we're dealing with very, very bad people. Sometimes these people really will give them back their give them the keys to their computer when they pay them the 5,000, or in corporate cases we've seen $50,000, $100,000 ransoms. In a lot of cases, people will pay the ransoms and they never get the key. The attacker just like, oh, we got the money, and they go away. They change everything. They never hear from them again. They don't get the key. They don't get anything unlocked, and they've lost their hard drive, the computer, all their data, and their money. So, a huge, huge attack. Never, ever, ever pay. I tell this to corporations. I tell this to people all the time, and they, say, well, we have to pay. We need that data. And I said, the chance of you getting your data even after you pay is very small. Don't pay. Every time someone pays, the attackers get more bold. They go after more people. If people weren't paying, they wouldn't be doing these attacks, right? If everybody just stopped paying the ransoms, ransomware would go away because the attackers wouldn't be making anything. Why would they keep doing the attacks? They'll only keep doing the attacks because people are paying them, and the more people that pay them, the more funds they have to do more attacks. Like I say, never pay, and the chance of you getting your data is very remote. So how do we defend ourselves against this? All the different things I talked about, really, educate yourself on what an attack looks like. Make sure you don't become a victim of an attack. Make sure you don't click on a link that's bad. Make sure that you don't go somewhere that you shouldn't go. Make sure that you're, doing safe things when you're on untrusted networks. And then patching, really, really, really applying patches. Microsoft releases patches every week. When your computer comes up and it's time to patch, make sure you're applying the Microsoft patches to your computer. In big corporations, they have huge efforts to apply patches. Now that we're working from home, it's making sure you apply the patches to your Microsoft Windows machine, making sure you're applying the patches to your Macintosh computer, making sure you're applying the new updates when your phone comes out. There's been a lot of attacks against iPhones, and Apple has released a number of different software updates to patch those, making sure you're applying those software updates. Don't say, oh, well, I really can't do that right now. I'll wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then I'll run it. You know, if the patch comes out, you should run the patch. Antivirus software, anti-malware software on your computer. That goes part of the way, right? It's not really foolproof. A lot of these attacks now are getting around antivirus, anti-malware software, but you definitely want to have that on there. It's definitely the first line of defense. Um, Biggest line of defense against these things is backing up your data. If you have a backup of your computer and you're backing up your data and you're backing up anything that's important to you, then the chance of you paying a ransom is very small, right? They lock up your computer, they took your computer, they say you need to pay them to get your data back. Well, no, you don't. All your data is backed up. It's in another safe location. And all you have to do is, rebuild your computer and put your data back, and you don't have to pay them anything. You didn't lose anything. All your data is backed up. There's a number of different ways to do this. People are using external hard drives. There's services that you can pay for. I have a number of my customers that are using services where we install a client on their computer. It backs up their data to a cloud server, and it backs it up every single night. They don't have to think about it. Anytime that their machine's running, it's backing up their data. If anything happens to their computer, it got stolen, it got ransomware, it broke, something happened, all that data is backed up in a secure place in the cloud. It's fairly inexpensive. You pay a monthly fee, but it's fairly inexpensive depending on the kind of data you have. It's probably well worth it. And you always have that backup. So, really a lot of different lines of defense here, but it's really education. Bottom line is, knowing what to look for, not falling victim, being educated on the types of things that are happening, so that you don't become that victim that they're looking for. And, really, when things happen, knowing the right people to call. So that's really my last slide here. What do you do if this happens to you? What's the next steps? Who do you go to? What do you need to do? Really, the first step, anytime you get attacked or your computer's attacked, power off and unplug your computer. Get it offline, take it offline, get it off, so that whatever's happening can stop, right? It's not going to stop unless you turn off that computer, unplug the internet, and wait till someone comes and helps you. If you continue to leave it on and running, then they can be taking data off. They can be encrypting more data. They can be doing more harm to your computer. So power it off completely. When you've been compromised, like what happened with my aunt when she got hit, I was able to fix her computer and get her back up and running, but it took her weeks to change all of her passwords. She had to change all of her passwords. She had to change her banking account passwords. She contacted her bank and her credit cards. They actually had to issue her new credit cards. Her bank had to change her banking account number because a lot of that stuff was compromised on her computer. It's a huge problem. It's going to take you a long time to recover from, but you need to change all your passwords. Call your bank, call your credit card companies if this happens to you, and start trying to, fix and stem the tide before it happens, before they're able to get money out of your accounts. In some cases, depending on what kind of data you have, you might have to get law enforcement or the FBI involved. This is very critical in certain types of industries. I have a lot of customers who are nurses and might have HIPAA data on their computer, customer patient data. I've got a number of customers who are like hospice nurses, and they use their laptop and they go around. If they're compromised, they have to, by law, call the FBI and report it because they've compromised patient data. And by law, for that patient data, they have to compromise. If they've been compromised, they have to call these agencies. Different agencies have different reporting statutes. Banking has some similar statutes. So, there's a possibility that you might have to get law enforcement or FBI involved. If it's ransomware that you're attacked with, like I said before, do not pay. Just don't pay them. You call a professional in, we can see if it's really encrypted, we can get the data back, but never pay. It's just not worth it. If it's your personal computer, then contact a local repair shop that has cyber experience. And by local repair shop that has cyber experience, I don't mean bring it down to Best Buy. And nothing bad about Best Buy. About It's been about 28 years now. I used to work at Best Buy. I was one of the cyber geeks at a Best Buy long time ago. So nothing against them, but they don't have cyber experience. They're not gonna, you know, they have computer repair experience. They can, repair your hard drive. They can put a CD-ROM or whatever, but they don't have cyber experience. They're not gonna be able to help you with a cyber attack. So take it to a reputable security company that has cyber experience. There's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of good ones all over. But when you call them, make sure they have cyber experience. I run a local company in Albuquerque called Board Communications. I do this for a lot of customers. I help with some of this, and I have that experience. So, you can reach out to me, but there's a lot of other companies out there that have that experience. Just don't take it to, one of these big box stores because they don't have that. If it's a corporate computer that's inside your corporation, the first thing you do is you call your IT department for help, right? If you have an IT department and it's not your computer, it's that corporate computer, you need to call that IT department. A lot of times you're going to need to talk to your manager. You have to let people know what happened. And like I say, different industries, those managers, your IT department might have to call in local law enforcement because the type of data that was on your computer and what possibly could have been compromised. There is help out there, and there's a lot of people that can help you. If you're completely lost, those local law enforcement agencies can help with your personal computer as well. There's a local cyber FBI branch in Albuquerque, and they can give you the names of reputable security places that can help you recover your data or help you if it's not in their jurisdiction to do that. So those people are the people that can really come out and help you get back on your feet. But really, the big thing is educate yourself and don't become that victim. Don't get to this step where you have to actually ask for help. If you can do all these things preemptively and you can stay away from all these attacks, then you don't get to that place. So really wanted to leave some time here for questions. Ask me real world examples, ask me things that are happening to you, and let's have an open dialogue and see where I can help you.
Jeremy, I'm going to start back up because we have a lot of questions. I'm following the chat window. I'm going to start at the top. Yannick's had the first couple of questions. I think you've already answered her question about whether or not, a certain type of internet security and VPN is enough. We've all learned that no, it's not enough. You need to be well educated. But her second question is how to avoid a hacking of social media and cloning of social media profile.
So that's hard. It's really, it comes to locking your accounts down as much as you can. I'm not a big fan of social media. I'm just gonna say that now. I do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, but I have to do that professionally. I've gotten rid of all my other social media accounts. I've gotten rid of Facebook. I've never used Twitter, and I try to avoid those things because of the attacks against them. There are settings that you can do, and I know there's things you can do to lock down your Facebook profile, so only your friends can see certain things, only certain people can see certain things. But that only goes as far as, having a secure password. If they can get into your password, then they can see all that. If they can get into your friend's password, now they can see all the information about you because your friend can see it. So there's really the only good way to protect yourself against that is not to share it. I mean, once you've shared it, once it's on the internet, it's on the internet, and it's really, really hard to get some of that data back once you've shared it. Just a quick story. I had a customer, it was actually a family member. We were on a cruise for a week, and their kids posted on social media that they were on this cruise. Their whole family was on the cruise, and we were on this cruise for a family reunion. They posted this. They lived in Texas in a small town, and they posted when they left, when they were coming back. Attackers in that town were following them. As a friend of a friend of a friend that knew them on this Facebook, and they mentioned it all the way down. And these guys broke into their house, and they continued to break into their house for the entire week, stealing stuff all week long until that house was ransacked. It was empty, but they knew exactly when they left, when they were coming home. They knew they had a week to destroy the house, to take everything they wanted, because the kids were posting on social media and they were posting, now we're at this stop and here's pictures of so they knew they weren't coming back home anytime soon. They know no one was watching the house. And, it's those kind of things are dangerous. Once you put them on the internet, it's hard to get them back. And I always tell people, if you're going on vacation, if you're leaving, don't post it on social media. If you want to post after you get home, here's pictures of my vacation, that's great. But don't post it while you're on vacation, because people can see that and now you become a victim.
Really good tip. This is a good question from Trish Lopez, and I know that our boss actually has the same question. He questions me about it all the time. Are there any issues with allowing Safari and Google Chrome to save your passwords?
No, most of those are pretty secure. So Safari, Google Chrome, I use those kind of things to save my password. And when they do save your password, they save them in an encrypted password store. So it's pretty secure. That being said, if someone stole your computer and they could log into it, they could get those passwords back out, right? So there are risks to it. It just depends on how, I can do it without those. Personally, I've got so many passwords. I couldn't possibly get through my day without having my browser store my password on some of these sites, because I just couldn't remember all of them. And like I say, it is pretty secure. And they use encryption. Where the problem comes in is when you start using things that aren't very secure, or you're using some untrusted plugin. And this is where a lot of people fall victim to this. They'll go, they know that they have to store their passwords, so they're using, Internet Explorer, and they're not using the Internet Explorer to save their passwords. They got some plugin that somebody suggested to them off the internet. They installed that plugin, or they installed that piece of software, and they're storing all their passwords in some untrusted piece of software that says password safe, whatever the software is, and now they're storing it in something that's not trusted. That's where problems happen. And I've seen pieces of software that advertise themselves out there, and there are even pop-ups that come up that say they're a great password safe, they got great reviews. You download it, it's actually produced by a Russian company. That company, when you start using that safe, not only is it saving the passwords on your computer in this database, it's sending those passwords every single time you enter one in to the company that developed it in Russia. And now you're using a piece of software that is watching you, hacking you, and now they've got your accounts. So really doing that securely is good. Doing it in a way that's unsecure can be very bad. So it's hard to tell, and it's just really one of those things. I say, if you're really so concerned about that you write everything down. The most secure way to write your passwords down, unfortunately, is old school, piece of paper, fold it up in your wallet, in your purse. That's really the most secure way to store all your passwords, right? They're on you. If they get lost, you have them, but they're not on a piece of device that can get hacked.
So Ian has a question. He wants to know if there's any good method or websites to check to see if your system got phished.
So there are. There's a number of good things, and the big ones are like McAfee. McAfee has some good software that'll check for malware, check for viruses. There's a lot of good AV companies do it. So there are some things out there. There's a good one that I like to use called Malwarebytes, but you have to be real careful with that one, because there's fake ones that look very similar. It's actually malware, M-A-L-R-E, where bytes, B-Y-T-E-S, not B-I-T-E-S or any other form, B-Y-T-E-S. That's a very good one, and that's one that I use to detect on some computers if they've been compromised. But a lot of these attacks are getting so sophisticated they can hide from all that. If they're able to get into your computer and install a backdoor, a lot of times they can hide from your antivirus. They can hide from a lot of these different programs because they're getting more sophisticated. And the problem isn't the software companies. It's the problem is they all have to look for a signature, and they're looking for a signature on your computer of compromise. The attackers are able to change that signature very rapidly and change the way that that attack looks very rapidly, and the software companies can't keep up with that. Typical AV companies adding anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200 new attack definitions to their database every single day. There's probably about 5,000 different attack variations that are happening every day. So you can see there's a huge vector there. If they're adding 1,200 and there's 5,000 that are actually changing every day, there's a big gap there that no company can really keep up with. But yeah, some of those companies can do a fairly good job of most of the attacks. I would just say always have a good antivirus, trusted antivirus on your computer that's running and checking for those kind of things. And you know, a lot of those you know, come with computers nowadays, but making sure that you keep them current and make sure that you keep the virus definitions current.
So I think you've answered Danielle's question. She was asking for a recommendation on regular cleaning and checking for malware. So any well-known antivirus, maybe Malwarebytes if you download the right one. Just got to be careful what we install.
Yeah, be
And
careful.
then,
Make sure you're getting the right commercial app program. What I recommend to a lot of people is buying them in a store. You know, if you go to a store, a software store, and you buy Malwarebytes off the shelf, or you buy Norton antivirus off the shelf, or Symantec antivirus off the shelf, you know it's a good, clean copy, and you know you're not going to the wrong website or something that looks like that website for that company. But yeah, getting those pieces of software and putting them on your computer, preemptively letting them run, and making sure they're always kept up to date. Everybody, the biggest question I always get is, what is the best antivirus program out there? And I don't really have a good recommendation. You know, AVG is a good one, and it's fairly inexpensive. Symantec's fairly good. Norton's fairly good, but all of them have their shortfalls. Not any one of them is awesome. I wouldn't, rate any of them a 10. Rate them all probably a 6 or a 7. And there's not really one that's doing a better job than any other ones. So I don't really have a lot of recommendation on what's the best one out there. Just get a reputable one that you keep current.
and Trish Lopez with Teen Years, who deals a lot with, seniors and the teens who help them with their software and their hardware, wants to know if there's any free software. I think Malwarebytes has a free version. She just needs to make sure she's getting the right one.
Yeah, Malwarebytes is a free version. AVG is probably the best free antivirus. They have a free version. It's not quite as well featured as the pay for version, but they do have a free version. There are free versions of some of the big companies out there. They're just not very full featured. So if you want something that has all the features, you probably need to pay for it. It's not always that you get what you pay for. There are some nice free things out there, but really 9 times out of 10, it's worth a few bucks to pay for a good antivirus, pay for a good malware program. Malwarebytes has a free version, but they also have a pay version. The free version will let you do a one-time scan, and it does a great job. The paid version sits on your computer like antivirus and is constantly checking and can stop attacks before they happen, instead of scanning for them after the fact. So it's really, it's worth a few dollars when you get a good program to pay for it, and really have that protection in place. And, it can save you thousands and thousands of dollars down the road.
Hey, Jeremy, can I elaborate on what you just said? Sorry, I just walked back in, so I've been away for about 45 minutes. Did you say, like, from a free perspective, because I'm thinking of low-income seniors, and we help a lot of low-income seniors, as well as those who might be able to afford whatever. So from a free standpoint, can you tell me what you would recommend again?
So from a free standpoint for antivirus, AVG is the one I recommend. They have a free, it's free for the first year, and it's kind of their entry-level product for malicious software. Malwarebytes has a free version that will let you do a scan. Those are probably the best free ones. But like I say, they're not as full featured as the pay for services, but they do a fair job.
Thank you.
Laura has a question. She wants to know if you hover over a sender's email address with your mouse, will it show the scammer's real email or will it show a fake address?
It could be either one of them. So that used to be the big trick, right? You can hover over it and it's going to show you the real address. It's gotten more sophisticated where you can spoof that as well. Where this happens though is if the attacker wants you to reply to them, they have to have a real email address in there for replies. So if they fake the hover method, when you cover over it, that's the email that's going to be when you reply to it. That's what it's going to send back to you. So 9 times out of 10, if an attacker wants you to reply to them, that is going to be their real email address. They can fake the displayed name. When you hover over it, that's the real email address that you're going to reply back to. A lot of attackers now, though, have gotten wise to that, and they don't really want you to reply back to them an email. That email says, call this number or go to this website. And when you hover over it, the website, the name that you hover over looks like the legitimate one. And if you actually reply to it, it would reply to the legitimate email address that's in there. But they don't care about that because they're wanting you to click on something or call somebody. So they're not waiting for that reply back. So it can be spoofed, and it's spoofed all the time as long as they don't want you to actually reply back to them. If they're asking you to reply back to them, then that hover method will show you their real email address that they want you to reply back to. But it's not the email address that technically that they send it from.
Awesome. Brad Shepard's here with Sandoval Economic Alliance, and he wants to know what to do with the callers. How do you prevent them from continuing to call?
You can't.
I like to mess with them.
Yeah.
Waste their time like they're wasting yours.
That's exactly what I've done several times. I have kept the guys who called, let's say they're from Microsoft. I kept one guy on the phone for an hour and a half messing with them before I told him, who I was. And, he gave me some curse words and hung up. But, yeah, there's really no way to do it. I mean, there used to be these national no-call lists. The attackers don't care about that. You can request for a number to be on no-call, your number to be on no-call list. They don't respect that. They don't care. These calls are coming from outside the country. They're not, following any rules or regulations. There's things you can get on your cell phone now. You can get software, and the cell phone companies, Apple's gotten a lot better at this, where they'll try to detect if it's a potential spam call, and they'll show you that it's a potential spam call. You can get, software for your cell phones that'll, try to eliminate some of those spam calls, but it only eliminates a very small percentage of them. Attackers now will even, they'll change their number they're coming from to look like your area code. So they're coming from the other side of the world, and the caller ID shows it's coming from your area code. I've gotten several phone calls that show it's coming from my phone number. So they'll spoof the number they're coming from, and it looks like my phone is calling my phone. The number on the caller ID is my phone number. So those programs can't detect that kind of stuff. So there are some ways to protect yourself a little bit with some of the software, but 90% of the calls are still going to get through, and you really can't stop them. I mean, without, you can unlist your number, you can do all these different things. They're going to get through. They're just going to guess numbers. They're going to keep calling you. And I wish there was a simple answer to that. Phone companies have been struggling with that question for years. I know Verizon has put millions of dollars into trying to stem the flow of that, and they haven't gotten any further than any of us have. So just no way to do it.
So I see that Hope asked what a patch was, and Hope, that's just if you get prompted for a update to Windows or your phone, that's a patch. He's just recommending you always keep things up to the latest version. Maria Espinosa wants to know if OneDrive works as a backup for data. And that's a good question. What if it's the OneDrive or the Office 365 password that they acquire? Then your backups could be useless.
Exactly. So yeah, OneDrive is a great place to back up your documents. I have a lot of customers using that. But like Lisa said, you have to keep that as a really secure password. If your machine gets compromised, they might be able to compromise the password to your Office 365 account and get your OneDrive data. So it is good, but you have to keep that secure and keep, the Microsoft patches up to date and make sure that you have really strong passwords for those kind of services. OneDrive, is not a full backup program though. It's really meant for backing up your documents. So if you have a lot of documents and that's what you're concerned about, then yeah, that's great for that. A lot of these other backup services are backing up your entire computer. So you have all your applications backed up, all of your web stuff backed up, all of everything backed up, instead of just, your documents of OneDrive. Other people use things like Dropbox and they'll put all their sensitive documents or things that they're really concerned about in Dropbox. You can use that to back up certain data. But once again, it's, folders of data or documents. It's not your entire computer. So it really depends on what you need to protect and what you really are critical if your machine got compromised.
Mary Lee says that she only accesses important data such as bank accounts from a computer that is hardwired to the phone line. She wants to know if that is safer.
It's a little bit safer. There are a lot of attacks that are coming from wireless. There are a lot of attacks coming from untrusted networks. So it's a little bit more of a trusted network if you're hardwired. So if you have internet connection at home and you're hardwired in instead of using wireless, it is a little bit safer. But then once again, you have to know if the modem that you're connecting to has default passwords on it. Is it secure? Is it up to date? Is it the newest? Can that be, if that could be compromised, they can get in your network, even on your wired network. So it is a little bit safer. It's not foolproof, but it is one extra layer, right? So when you're adding security, each layer that you have to go through makes it a little bit more secure. So adding, being off of wireless, being hardwired is another layer. Antivirus is a layer. Safe passwords is a layer. So the more things you can layer on top of that, the more secure you are. So it does help a little bit.
And then John Ayala wants more specific examples for passwords, VPN, security, software storage. I think we've talked about some of these. Do you have a recommendation for a VPN software?
So there's a lot of different ones. So a lot of corporations will use like Cisco VPN. It's very expensive. There's SonicWall VPN, which is now a Dell product. There's a lot of different VPN companies out there that are big corporations are using. Then there's also personal VPNs where you're installing software on your computer and you're going through a personal VPN on your computer to access things. So what that actually does is it makes your computer jump to another server, and then your machine goes from that server on, and that adds that extra layer of protection in there. I haven't seen any really, really good personal VPN products. They're all hard. They're all a little bit shady. They're all, you're relying on the security of those VPNs going through that other company's computers. And those are big attack vectors. So I don't really recommend, there's not one of those I can recommend. For corporations, I recommend things that the big companies like SonicWall and Cisco do a really good job. But the personal, ones that are just software based on your computer, I don't really recommend any of those.
Maria wants to know what company you work for. Can you tell her what DSA stands for?
Yeah. So the company I work for is Data Systems Analytics, and we're a company out of DC, the DC area, and we do a lot of government work with a lot of big government contracts. We do a lot of stuff with Department of Defense, Department of Energy. We have contracts all over the world, and I've actually been quite fortunate to be able to travel all over the world with my company. I've gone, to a lot of different places. I've gone to the Netherlands. I've gone to some places are escaping, but I've been a lot of different places out of the country. doing cybersecurity with my company. So we have global operations. But it's data systems analytics, and our website is dsainc.com. That we do.
And then what do you think about password managers like Bitwarden and Dashlane?
I said before about some of those. Some of them are really good. Some of them are malicious pieces of software. So really understanding where the software was made is the first thing. I don't know the two that you mentioned there. I don't know either one of those companies, so I couldn't speak directly to either one of those. But I do know a lot of those password managers are coming out of Russia, coming out of Ukraine, and they're actually stealing passwords. So really looking at where the password program was originated from, who wrote it, and then really looking at reviews and figuring out how legit it is. There are a lot of legit password managers out there. Dell makes a great password manager. Intel actually has a password manager program. HP Secure, it's called, has a great one. So a lot of the big companies have some really good password managers out there. So it's something you're gonna have to do some research on and make sure you're getting a good, legitimate one that uses good encryption as well. A lot of them, will use very weak encryption. You want something that's using high encryption and is a reputable company.
So Maria has another question. What are backup services that will back up more than documents? What will back up the apps?
So there's a lot of them. You can pay for services from, there's a Microsoft backup service. You can get a service from, well, one second here now.
Isn't there one still built into Windows?
There's one built into Windows. There's one I recommend to all my customers, and the name is escaping right now. Hold on one second, I will tell you what that is. Okay, I'm sorry. It's Carbonite. Carbonite is the #1 backup service that I recommend for full backup. I've vetted them quite extensively with some of my customers. They are a US-based company. They are, all your data is US-based, and they use very hard encryption. So Carbonite's the one I'd recommend. The other one is a Kronos, and it's called ACRONIS. They're another US-based company that do full backups. So those are the two that are online data backup services that I recommend. Carbonite, I think, is my #1 for the customer. It's fairly inexpensive, and it's a monthly fee, and they do a good job. But depending on your computer, you can use the Microsoft one, you can use the Apple Drive. Those all work well as well also, and they're all monthly subscription fees as well, depending on how much data you're backing up.
So Ian's back with all the spoof calls he gets, and he says when he answers them, often it's silent and they just hang up. So he wants to know if you think his phone got hacked one way or another. Is that why these calls keep coming in?
So a lot of those calls where you answer it and there's nobody there, they're calls where they're trying to find out if it's a legitimate number. So what's happening is, and these services are popping up all over, company will put in a block of numbers. So they'll put in, a certain prefix, and they'll start at, 255-0001-0002, and it just keeps calling every single number looking for a legitimate number. When you answer, it puts a flag on your number that's a legitimate number, and now other, attacks start happening. Now you get the call that says, they're the FBI and you have a warrant for your arrest. Those kind of things, because they now know it's a legitimate number. They're not going to make a recording to every single one of those numbers. They're just trying to get people to answer so that they can flag and say it's a real number. So they're just guessing numbers until they get those legitimate ones. Then they attack those numbers further. So that's really what those blank calls typically are, is just that attack, trying to find out if it's someone that'll enter that number or if that's a number that's, not being used.
Wow, you guys had some great questions. we're almost out of time. We've got 6 minutes left. Most of you stayed the entire time, which is amazing to me. So obviously this was some really good information. If anybody wants to unmute themselves and ask any last questions that maybe you didn't get answered, feel free. Jeremy, this was amazing. Hi, Maria.
Hi, I do have a question. I missed most of this because I had another Zoom call. I got on just for the hacking of the ransomware. How can I access the full recording of this?
We will notify people who registered via Eventbrite how to access the recording, okay? So we are recording it. We knew there would be some people who couldn't make it, our boss included. So we'll make sure and send details for that, Maria.
Okay, thank you.
Trish, do you have another question?
No, I'm going to watch the recording and see if Jeremy answered the other questions so I don't make him repeat himself for everyone. But
I know how to get a hold of Jeremy if you need him. So.
Thank you, Jeremy, for providing us all this information. It's so great. Thanks, Lise, for setting it up.
You're welcome. Marilee, did you have one last question?
I do, yeah. I'm wondering if you have an evaluation of a program called CCleaner. I use CCleaner every time I go on Facebook. I figure that Facebook is planting all kinds of garbage on my computer every time I look at it. So after I use Facebook, I then go to CCleaner, and it says that it's cleaning out a bunch of tracking software and so forth. Do you have an opinion about that?
I don't personally like CCleaner. It is one of the free ones out there. It doesn't particularly do a great job, and it kind of lies. It says it's doing more than it's actually doing. And really, bottom line, what it's really doing is the same thing you can do in your web browser. All it's really doing is clearing out your cache and your cookies. And any web browser can do the same thing. So you can go into Firefox, you can go into Internet Explorer, and you can go to clear cache and cookies. And that's kind of what CCleaner is doing. It's an okay program, and it does an okay job, and I've evaluated it, and it doesn't do as good a job as just what the web browsers can do natively, quite frankly. And it'll try to clear things out with the web browser. When you clear it in the web browser can release all those things and clear them out. CCleaner can only release and delete all the stuff that the web browser doesn't have locked. So a lot of times you'll run that, and there's a bunch of cache and cookies that it couldn't delete because the web browser had it locked, and the web browser just natively could have done it, and you didn't have to have another piece of software. So, like I say, it's okay.
It doesn't do any harm, right?
What's that?
It doesn't do any harm.
It doesn't do any harm, but it doesn't do everything it says it does either. But
Okay.
it is a legitimate company, so it's not malicious, but it's just not great either.
Okay, thanks.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
I use a product for backup called Backblaze. Do you have any, have you ever heard of that? Is it?
I have heard of that one. Yeah, I haven't vetted them as much as I have Carbonite. They are a good company. Their software I know works well. It backs up well. I just haven't vetted them if they're, if everything's stored in the U.S. and things. The problem with some of these companies is they use data services to back up your machine. They use large disk arrays out in the cloud, and they don't always use the most secure cloud services, or they use cloud services overseas, and that's kind of where some of the things that can be bad and some of those backup software can be. So I've never vetted them as far as being all US based. I do know that it does work well. I've done recoveries from there. I just haven't vetted them as far as their cybersecurity is concerned.
Yeah, I've had to recover from there a couple of times, and it's worked well, the recovery.
Yeah, the recovery from there works well. I know their software works well. So, yeah.
Lisa, I have a question.
Yes.
When you set up my computer, you set it up to back up on the cloud, OneDrive?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
So just make sure this is my mother, by the way. Make sure your password's secure, Nona. Don't share it with anybody.
Okay, I won't.
All right, guys, we are completely out of time. Laura reminded me that we are also going to paste this recording on the Fat Pipe NM YouTube channel. And she just put that in chat, so you can go back and rewatch it there as well. Jeremy, you're amazing. Thank you so much. I think you calmed some nerves today, answered a lot of questions, and we very much appreciate your time.